Good morning. Welcome to You Are Your Brand, where I am your host, Felicia Shakespeare. I am so excited to see you today, to be with you today, just to share and have some knowledge drop and, of course, some uplifting time, but more importantly, some information that will help you move further and become the best version of who you are. So let's talk about it. So I'm just happy once again to be here. As I was thinking about our first week, I kind of told you a little bit about who I am and what I do. So if you're just joining us for the first time, I'm actually an author, I'm a speaker, I'm also an educator and an entrepreneur. And how did this journey start? It started about 5 years ago, just with the concept of wanting to help others understand how to develop themselves personally and professionally. So, You Are Your Brand represents not just the aesthetics of a brand and building a brand from on the outside, but mostly the focus that I came with was personal brand development. So, I'm so excited. What we did last week, we actually spoke about just the basics of branding, right? The fact that you are marked, right? There's something that you are called to do that no one else can do exactly like you can. And I want to say that again. There's something that you are called and purposed to do that no one else will be able to do in this world. Isn't that amazing when you really think about that? The fact that not only do we all have a different DNA, but literally we are so intricately made so there's no one that can do exactly what you were sent here to do. But the other side to that is there's a responsibility. You could type it in the chat box. There's a responsibility, right? That everyone has to take, right, in order to develop themselves. So it's not like you grow into it overnight. Now, I know I hear some people say some people are born leaders. I do believe that some people are born leaders. I think some people are born as they're athletically skilled. Some people are born to sing. But there are some times, and in some instances too, where in order to be the best at it, right? You can be born to do something, but you're not necessarily the best at it, right? Because you can still improve your craft. That's why you have singing coaches. That's why you have athletic coaches, right? Because you can improve your craft. And at the same time, with all that said, whatever it is, so the purpose of this show is to help you understand that whatever it is that you have been purposed to do, that you need to work on becoming the best at that. So we want to talk about today. I'm just so excited about that. So once again, we talked about last week about how you are marked and how, even just the aspect of what branding, basic branding means, right? And the bottom line is you're always representing yourself to the world, regardless of how you want to take ownership of that or not. That is something it's just funny when you hear athletes say, I don't want to be a role model. Well, guess what? It's just in the cards, right? Even if, like I said, whatever we do in life, we are automatically put in a position where someone is watching us, right? So that means, guess what? You are a leader, right? You are a brand, and at the same time, it does matter exactly how you present yourself in those situations. So what I want to talk about today specifically is how building a personal brand is personal, right? Building a personal brand is personal. And I think a lot of times, as I said, so many people, when we hear the word branding and when we think of branding, we're just always thinking about the glamour and the glitz, right? But there are key components that have to go into developing yourself, right? First of all, so I think it's very important to first and foremost talk about what is personal development. So a lot of times when we prepare ourselves, right, for careers, we're not preparing ourselves personally. You're preparing yourself what? Professionally, right? A lot of times when entrepreneurs have those dreams to just go out and start a business and start an organization, whatever it is, it's because they had a vision, right? And typically, what is a business? And even when you're plugged into a career, what are you there to do? You're there to solve a problem, right? But along the way, guess what? You're always a part of that equation, right? And I begin to think about the fact that when I was thinking about what I wanted to do as a career, When I was starting out and going and wanting to pick out my major in college and all that stuff. I'm not going to get too deep in that because I talked about that the last time. But long and short, the focus was not necessarily about my development. It was about how I could do that job, right? It was about, okay, if I'm going to become this, if I'm going to become a lawyer, hypothetically, then of course you're thinking about all of what it takes, the skills to be a lawyer, right? But a lot of times, and I think they have improved on that now in the college scene, but a lot of times there was no courses out there to talk about things like what? Character development, integrity, honesty. And at the beginning and end of it all, you have to have a certain level of understanding of where you want to go and what type of person you want to be in the bigger scope of things. So what is personal development? It's literally when you are developing based on the vision and clarity of what you want to see yourself being as an individual, how you want to see yourself perceived, right? So just like we set goals for our money, we set goals for our family. You know, it's also important that you set goals for yourself personally, you know. And when I say that, of course, physical, that's important, right? Your health. We know your health is your wealth, right? That's one component of it. But a lot of times, the hardest thing to deal with are the things we cannot see. Who believes? Who wants to say yes to that? Sometimes the hardest things to change in ourselves are the things that are not visible, right? So I always say this: you can earn a degree, right? But you can't buy a personality, right? You can't. No matter what you do in life, as far as a college training and all that, people are still going to always see you at the forefront of that thing. So let's go ahead and talk about some of the things it takes to develop yourselves personally, right? What is personal development? So we already talked about it. So what is personal development in the basic sense? It comes down to you bettering yourself. You can type that in the chat box. Who wants to be better? Who just wants to be better? You know, so how do I go about doing that, right? There's so many ways that people go about that nowadays. They're taking courses. Of course, they're listening to podcasts, right? We attend conferences. And so we read books, right? And we even we get coaches, right? Because we want to be better and be the best at what it is. So that's why there that whole arena of personal development is so important. Is because why the bottom line in the basic sense of the word personal development means I'm just becoming better in the process. I'm evolving. I'm growing, right? But what are some things you have to do along the way? So one thing you have to do clearly when you are developing yourself is what you have to have clarity. And I think that's why back to you are your brand. You have to have clarity on your why. Why am I going to do or choose to do the things that I'm doing as far as my career, as far as my relationships. And I want to also just deal with that part because once again, personal development is personal, right? If I'm talking about developing my personal life, that involves what my relationships. Uh, some people call it their inner circles. Who are the people that you are around? What are the things that you're exposing yourself to? All of those things will impact the person that you are becoming. So that's why you see a lot of people say now, I'm protecting my inner circle and I'm protecting my peace, right? Because why? It is so critical what you're letting into your life, literally and figuratively. So what does a personal development plan do for us? What it helps us to what cultivate focus, right? It narrows our attention, right? So regardless of all the things that are happening, when you are developing yourself on a personal level, out of all the things that you have going on, of all the tasks, you still have a focus, right? You get to narrow your attention down to a particular area in order for you to grow in that area, right? So it's just like right now, and I'm just gonna be very honest, I have to work on some physical things as far as my health. There's some personal development that I need to make, just so I can be in a healthy space And I know there are still some choices, right, that I have to improve on, as it relates to what my diet, as it relates to how much I exercise in a week. It's all, we know these things, but we have to act on it, right? We have to be what intentional, right? Because what your brand, you have to build your brand, and it has to be a personal thing. It is very, very personal. So, what does personal development do? It also helps you improve on the current skill set that you have. So what do you do when you develop yourself personally? You are making an investment in yourself. So it's not necessarily just about money, but it does take an investment of time, and sometimes it does take an investment of resources and commitment, right? In order to prove the skill set you have. And we know right now, I'll be very honest with you. If we just look around, a lot of what we need is already around us, right? Usually it's right there. And you don't necessarily have to pay. And I'll be even literal. You can go on YouTube for a lot of things that you want. We are an information age. Everything literally. If I like I'll give an example how I had the particular vehicle that I have. It has a special key, and something had happened where I couldn't get in my vehicle over the wintertime. And I'm just like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? Then I went. I was actually not at home. I was at a particular out. I was at a particular space or place, and as someone was coming out that I know, I was like, oh my God, I'm locked out. And she just put, let's YouTube it. So we literally YouTubed it, and it was right there, step by step, my vehicle, what to do with this key, how to get in. It was just crazy. But sometimes we can have things right at our disposal, the resources that we need, and we're not taking advantage of the things that are what just given to us. You don't necessarily have to always, invest thousands of dollars, because at the end of the day, until you be intentional, until you make the plan, until you act on it and become disciplined enough to improve in those areas and make up in your mind, you can invest. And there are people all the time that are investing all the time in equipment. How many times have you heard somebody invest in a treadmill or a bike, exercise bike, and then it just becomes something that they're sitting in the house and yet they're throwing laundry on, and it becomes something else and it's not being utilized. So really, once again, back to personal brand development. When you want to develop in an area, you have to have a narrowed focus, and that is one advantage of understanding that area. And as I said, you cultivate your skills. Also, you learn new skills too. And at the end of the day, you become more aware of just who you are as you spend time with learning what you're good at and what you need to improve on. I also think a great part, like I said, building a personal brand is personal, right? Building a personal brand is personal. You are always a part of the equation. And I want to say there are some things, as I started out saying today, that are not visible, that have to be developed. What are some of those things? The key thing I always think about is our character, right? Character development. There has been a program in the education system, and there has been a a program for years in the education system called Character Counts, right? Where they teach children. And I always look at the fact that at the end of the day, we were all younger, and we were children, but we've just grown up. And I always tell even young kids and young people, guess what? We're still just like you. We're just bigger. We had more experiences, but really we're all kids at heart, right? But one thing I think that of course, we understand that a lack of character is really plaguing our society today, right? Because people don't want to be honest. I'm not going to get into political views on this show. That might happen another day. But let's just be real. A lot of what we see in the media right now is a lot of untruth, right? A lot of dishonesty, a lot of people that are not taking ownership of just their behavior. So a personal development, once again, is personal, right? You have to think about the kind of character you have. And I know people don't want to talk about those things anymore. It's not popular to talk about being honest, right? It's not popular to talk about having integrity. It hurts. If somebody put it in the chat box, I know you with me. I know I'm feeling that thing. Thank you, Veronica. I love the interaction here. I'm keeping it real. It hurts sometimes to face the things that you lack, right? That you need to work on. I could give great examples. And that's why you have to be willing, right? If you want to build a brand, right, you have to go through the process of personal brand development. Because why? That's the only way you're going to be effective, and that's the only way you're going to grow. But I was thinking about the fact that, even taking responsibility, right? People just don't want to take responsibility anymore, of their own actions. I'm one now that I'm going to, I'm quick to acknowledge, I'll say quick and quicker, because, sometimes it takes a little time. We're human. But I have to acknowledge the times where I could have done something differently, right? Even in the way I articulate or communicate or navigate, right? Just because you're an entrepreneur, right, and you have that title doesn't mean you're the best at it, right? We are all at a beginning point in whatever stage. Write that down. We all start at the beginning. So whether you are a career professional, whether you are an entrepreneur, whether you become and know you have a calling to the ministry as a pastor, I always say we all start as novices, right? Whether you choose a particular path as a lawyer, an educator, and I always tell so that, and even just because you become this quote unquote thing you now have this title, that's why you can't separate the personal development piece because that's the critical piece. Why? Because that will determine your success. I'll give an example. You can be an entrepreneur and you could have the business skill set, but you don't know how to manage people. You don't know how to effectively communicate with your staff. Well, how long are you going to have a staff, right? How long will they want to stay? Will there be a huge turnover just because you don't know how to be respectful in the way you speak, you deal with people, right? It's all relative. Everybody type that in the chat. If you with me, type it in the chat. Type it in the chat. It's all relative, right? So your honesty, the way you navigate, even and people remember you, right? They always remember you, And my favorite quote, I was on the phone sharing yesterday. My favorite quote, and it's been like a stickler for the last, I would say at least the last decade. Maya Angelou. People will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. So, yes, we bring that to the table in personal branding, right? Who we are, how we treat people. It's so critical. Once again, when you are self aware, right, these are some of the things that start to come to the forefront, right? So, every time we bring ourselves to the table, right, we're bringing our personal brand to the table. So the question begins, at this moment, I want you to help me. Let's do a little interaction here. If you had to sum up your brand in one or two words today, what would it be? Feel free to type it or just think about it. If you had to sum up your brand today, your personal brand, how would you describe it in one or two words? That's a huge, huge thing, right? So what did I just say? Some things we know money can't buy. It's a practice. It's a conviction. It comes to the point of our moral character. Who we are at the core. And I always hear people say that are very wealthy. When I say that as in zeros in their accounts, they have those zeros behind their name. But I always hear one thing they say in common. All money does is magnify what's inside of you, right? Money, is we need money, right? We're not going to downplay to personally develop yourself, to be able to take vacation, to have self-care, to invest, you have to have resources most of the time, right? Of course, there are free pieces I talked about, and then there's things you're going to have to invest in. But at the end of the day, you know, when you have a goal and what's on the inside of you, um, is not necessarily in the space and place it should be, it's going to magnify, right? And when it is, it's going to magnify. So that's why when people see you and when they interact with you, they have a first impression. Always, I think I'm going to have that those stats. But I think it's within the first 45 seconds of meeting you, most people have summed you up. Can you believe that? We know that, right? Who's done that before? When you meet someone, it's something about them. And I'm talking about whether you know them or not. You've come to a conclusion about that individual, usually what? Based on what you see and based on your initial feel. Now, sometimes are we accurate? No, it takes time. You do have to build relationships to get to know people. But at the end of the day, guess what? People are by nature, that's just the way the world thinks. They just automatically have a perception. Some people call it judgmental, and I think you're going to have a perception. You can call it judgmental. Of course, judgmental has somewhat of a negative undertone, but I think at the end of the day, you have to decide how you navigate with your judgment. But we do. Let's just be real. People, the first thing they see is you. That's why even when you have a job interview or any type of it, or when you're interviewing someone, you're looking at, okay, this is how you came today. So that's why even I've seen situations where I've been like floored. When I've had a situation, I was over a mentorship program for some young adults, and I was just like, this is a job. You're at a job interview, right? Because they came, it was just like they just got out of bed and came to just talk, and it was just like, okay, all right. But at the end of the day, you do have to take ownership of so many different parts. But one thing, again, the things that count the most, and we're going to dive into them over the course of the season. Can't get it all out, of course, today, because there's each topic I honestly believe will take a lot of time. But your honesty, once again, how truthful you are to yourself and to others, and how you, once again, take responsibility for your actions, and how you are communication. A communication is key in personal branding, and of course, your integrity. Like I said, these are the things that money can't buy. Your mindset, you know, the way we think, and even we know, and that's why, you know, when I say, of course, we're in a faith based network, so I can't say this, but we have to be renewed in our minds, right? Just because you accept Christ and become a believer, I had to learn years ago that was just a tidbit. That was just the very basic of it all. That was the beginning of the journey, right? It took time. It took a lot of learning and growth, to grow up and become and get understanding about, these things that we know to be the pillars of our faith. And that's why we expose ourselves, to godly people and to the word of God, right? Into situations that will better us, and help us what? Internalize, right? Internalize and become, right? Become. I love that book, even the title by Michelle Obama, Becoming. Because why? Even in this process, just know it's never too late. It's never too late to change. When people say they can't change, they are confessing something that they're going to live out. But if you can start believing that you can change and that you can make the changes, and I think I said this already before in the other episode, until you believe, no one else will, right? Until you take ownership, responsibility, right? No one else will. So with personal brand development, once again, at its core is the basic of being. Do a quick recap before we close. It's becoming better. You want to be better. That's the core. Who wants to be worse? I don't know anybody that wants to be worse at whatever. Now, it's a lot of warped thinking going on around here. But for the most part, people want to be better. Or ask yourself, do you want to be better? Have you even challenged yourself to become better, right? Sometimes I think we go through life like it's not life. Life is fleeting. Nothing is promised. All I have is today. I can't go back to yesterday. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I have to be in life right now. And I love the fact that, I was sharing once again my personal statement, you know, when I came up with one, I said, what is Felicia about? So as you leave today, I want you to leave with the thought of what am I about? Once again, as I said, if you could sum up your brand, who you are in one or two words, what would it be? What is your statement? What can you say? So I had to think back. And it may change soon. It may change, because why? Our lives change, our growth. You're not where you were. The younger you is not the adolescent you is not the teenage you, is not the young adult you, is not the grown person, the middle age, whatever. But whatever phase you are in, guess what? You are your brand, and we can continue to grow and develop those core pieces of our lives. And that's what we're going to continue to do, focus on our personal brand, our development, and once again, taking action. So what do I want you to do? What I was about to say, I want you to take action. What is your mission statement? What is the one, if I asked you who you are in a couple words or in a statement, can you articulate that and have the conviction and the know? So why? It goes back to what? Number one, knowing your why. We talked about that. Knowing your purpose, knowing your identity. Who are you? Who you are at the core, and being able to articulate that to the world and to others around you. So thank you so much again. I am so happy that you were able to join me today for You Are Your Brand. We are talking about, once again today, the whole aspect of building a personal brand is personal. You have to take it personal. You have to be intentional, and you have to take ownership of how you will become who you are becoming, right? Who you are becoming. It is an evolution, right? It's not one cookie cutter. And that was the hardest thing I had to figure out as a young person. I think that put me in so much distress because, what do you want to be when you want to grow up? What do you want to be when you grow up? And I was like, okay, what I want to be. And I was like trying to figure out, okay, I want to go, okay. Oh, it's not like life doesn't work like that. We learned that, right? Life is evolutionary, right? And I think I'll never forget, speaking about change is inevitable. I had spoken years ago about how change is inevitable. Change is coming, whether you are changing or not. Guess what? You are changing, but are you changing with and are you growing and becoming the best version of who you are? So thank you again for being with me today. I hope you got something out of the time we shared together. You are your brand. If you would like to stay connected with me, you can connect with me on social media at Felicia Shakespeare on Instagram, also on Facebook. Also, my website is FeliciaShakespeare.com, and I look forward to spending some more time with you unveiling these truths next time. So, God bless you. Have a fantastic day. See you soon.